Talents and abilities. How we go forward.
This is your moment. This is where it happens. This is where your story changes. This is where you decide to take action. This is where you become the solution. This is where you see lives changed. This is where you are changed. This is where adventurous entrepreneurs go. Love people, go places, change lives. Let's get after it. The question you've got to ask yourself is, what am I meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem are you meant to solve? In your city, in your community, in your country, in your world, what are you meant to solve? And once you answer that question, nothing can stop you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the IJ
It's
Show.
time to stop floating down the river of life,
warming
just
up.
taking whatever comes your way. It's time to live out the dream that's been placed inside of you all along. Start that thing, make that change, take that action, just go. There's just too much at stake
Just go.
and too many lives waiting for you to stay comfortable.
Welcome everybody. How are you today? Welcome to the IJ Show live. Oh, I remember this night. That was fun. Welcome to the Impact Junkie Show, where we are loving people, we're going places, and we are changing lives. Hey everybody, Philip here. Thanks for joining us live. How are you today? How are you? Good to see everybody. So glad you are here. Today we're going to be talking about your big, hairy, audacious problem. Your BHAP. That's what we're going to dig into today. I'm so glad you are here. I'm so glad to be with you all. This is going to be fun. We're going to tell some stories. We'll take some questions and look forward to digging deep into this. This is the foundation of everything we do as Impact Junkies. Everything we do. It all starts with, what are you meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem are you meant to solve? And all these videos that you've seen, all these images, these are all real stories, real people, real Impact Junkies. Look at all these photos. Look at all these photos. These are all Impact Junkies stepping up, saying, I want to do more with what I've been given. And I've had a lot of people ask about this backdrop. And yes, these are all photos. This is a real backdrop of photos of Impact Junkies all around the world stepping up. Look at this. Awesome. I love this photo of Elfina and Marcos stepping up, doing more with what they've been given. And that's what it's all about. And it's easy to get frustrated about things we see in the world, about big problems. And the next question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to take action? How are you not going to contribute to the problem? Or at the very best, just not be helpful, and at the very worst, you could actually be part of the problem. So that's what we're going to dig into today. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you've started this Impact Junkie journey together, and this is what it's all about. It's stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, you know what? I am tired of just the status quo, of just staying the same way I've always done, things I've always done. Maybe I feel like I'm in the rat race, and it's time to take action. And so that's what we're gonna work on together today. So if you're joining us live, please share. We're going live on YouTube and on Facebook. Please share the posts. Invite your friends. This is gonna be a fun conversation. And what Impact Junkie is all about, one of the most important aspects of being an Impact Junkie is you do life together. And so share the post, get more people involved, and we're going to work together. And we have this honest curiosity to learn. It says, we haven't totally figured it out yet, but we're working together to figure out what are we meant to solve and how best we can understand these problems and how best together we can be the solution. Hey everybody, welcome. Let's see some X's in the chat and some snaps. I love it. So glad you're here. So let's talk about your BHAP. Let's talk about what this means. And this is the foundation for every impact junkie. When we start on this journey, it starts with your BHAP and your story. And when we talk about BHAP, that's our acronym for Big, Hairy, Audacious Problem. Big, hairy, audacious problem. And if you don't know what your BHAP is, well, you might be living a life that's not as fulfilling as you could be. There's definitely something that you're meant to solve that's uniquely yours. And there are definitely a lot of people cheering for you, waiting for you to step up. So we're going to dig in today on why a BHAP is so important. Why having a BHAP and understanding your BHAP, your big, hairy, audacious problem, why that is so important. And this is core, foundational, intro level impact junkie journey is starting with this one question: what are you meant to solve? And so I'm glad you all have started this impact junkie journey and we're doing this together. But let's talk a little bit about what it means and to have a BHAP and why it's so important. First off, a BHAP. One of the reasons it's so important is because you want a reason to get up every day, right? You want a reason to get up every day and be fired up about this is what I was meant to do with my life. Have you had those days where you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm just so miserable. Like, do I have to do this again? Ugh. When you're focused on your BHAP, you don't have those. Well, you have those mornings. Everyone has those mornings. Let's be real. But maybe you have to do some difficult things, but you know you're motivated beyond just, oh, it's so difficult and why am I doing this? And I feel like I'm stuck on this treadmill that I can't get off, or like a hamster wheel, and I just keep spinning in circles, right? And I feel like I'm stuck and I don't know what to do next. So the reason you want to have BHAP, number one, is you want a reason to get up every day on fire. And if you're finding yourself in this place where you feel like it's difficult to get up, or you're not looking forward, or you're really regretting every day, and you do this over maybe a series of, it lasts beyond a week or 2 weeks, you start questioning, you start asking yourself, is this what I'm meant to do? Right? That's so important. And before we talk about business plans and starting an organization and all these things, it needs to start with you. And is it rooted in something deeper? And I can take you to several moments in my life where I've had to make these jumps. And in Impact Junkie, we have these jumping ceremonies, right? Where you make this change from, maybe I felt like I was, not going directly where I was doing something very meaningful, but I felt like I was called to something more. And I had this passion that was placed inside of me and this calling to do more. And I'm sure you identify with that. And so there's many moments, there's definitely a couple of key moments, but there's many moments, but a couple of key moments where you can point. And one of those, I was on a train, on a commute, right? Commuting in. I had this job that I was happy in. I was comfortable, which is the scariest IJ word, is the comfortable word. But I was sitting on the train and I had this moment, and I get off the train and I'm looking around and everyone's racing and hurrying to get somewhere. And after a few days of questioning, why am I doing this? I feel like I've kind of plateaued here. I've reached my limit and I don't have that fire anymore to keep driving. Am I just doing this just to have a job? Just to have a career, right? Or is there something deeper driving me? And that's what you want. That's number one. Number two, there's a reason you are on this planet, right? There's a reason you are on this planet. There's something you are here to do. We talk about this little pale blue dot and the 7 billion plus people that are just waiting for you to step up, right? This little pale blue dot. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But there's a reason that you're where you are, why you're doing what you're doing, why you've had the experiences that you've had, right? You got to figure out what that is. And that's why the BHAP is so important. Number three, you've got limited time. You've got limited time. Time is ticking. And that's one thing we know for sure. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world, but one thing we know for sure, we all have a limited amount of time. We talk about the 29,000 days. I actually have one of those up on my wall. 29,000 days. If you live to be 80, you've only got about 29,000 days on this earth, right? And then you've got to subtract a third of all your days for sleeping, sitting in traffic, doing chores, right? Using the restroom. You spend a year of your life using the restroom, and you got to subtract all these days, so you actually have a lot less time than you even think you have. And that can inspire you or scare you, and we hope it inspires you to say, I've got to make the most of every day that I've been given. Every second. The time is so limited. So what are you doing with the time you've been given? It's not a lot of time. Not a lot of time. I had a good friend, Keish, at Harvard, and we did a lot of crazy things together, big events, big programs, government things, and we worked even in Congress together on programs, and we had this funny saying, not a lot of time, because we would always say, oh, we have one day, we have to do this massive program, and all these things aren't done, and it's got to be done by tomorrow. And she'd say, oh, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. And then we had a couple of moments where it's like, deadline is here, all these things aren't done, and the joke is sort of not a lot of time. And that's the way we kind of go through life as impact junkies, is not a lot of time. I got to make the most of every day that I've been given. And when you think about the big, hairy, audacious problem, why you were put on this planet, you want to spend every bit of that limited time doing what you're meant to do, right? Working towards that BHAP. Fourth reason why it's so important to have a BHAP. Fourth is no one else has your story. No one else has your story. There's no one else on this planet who has your exact same story. When you look back over your life, and this is one of the first exercises you get to do with us as IJs, will go through this, your chapters of your life. And you talk about the feet photo, right? Taking these snapshots of where you were in that moment, and you look back and can connect the dots and start to develop themes out of that and start to understand you have a unique story. We have so many IJs who've said, well, I don't know what I have to offer, or, it's kind of like, I'm so overwhelmed because there's so many other people who have all these credentials and have all this education and have all these connections, and what do I have to offer? Or maybe you're trying to hide some things because you felt painful, or you're embarrassed by something you've gone through, or a painful experience you've had. And so many times you realize sometimes those moments in life that we've tried to push down, or maybe we think we want to ignore or forget about, maybe the very thing you're called to help others with. Right? Maybe the very thing we try to hide or push down, maybe the very thing we're called to solve, and the very thing we're meant to help others with. So when we talk about the BHAP, it's uniquely yours. Your story is uniquely yours. There's no one else who has that story. No one else who's had the same family, who's grew up in the same neighborhood, who had that education, right? Both formal and informal, right? Who has been to those places, right? Who's had those beautiful days, those really painful days. No one else. No one else has that story. There's a story, and there is a story that is uniquely yours, and a BHAP that you're meant to solve that's uniquely yours. No one else can do it just like you can. And we have IJs who, like Beth, who her husband was killed in Afghanistan, right? She's a Gold Star widow with the U.S. military. And she was in one of our workshops and said, I don't know what I have. All these other people have so many amazing stories. And I said, Beth, tell me your story. And she started talking about what she's been through and how she would help prepare the booklets for other spouses in the military in case their spouse was killed. And she talks about the article she wrote called The Grief Marathon that was published in the Harvard Summer Review, and how she loves writing, right? And this whole set of experiences, which would take a long time to tell you. And just in the short overview, I said, Beth, you have so much to offer so many others. There are so many waiting for you to step up that need you. So it's not just about you and your story. It's about how your story can help others, right? That's tying your story to the BHAP, your big, hairy, audacious problem. And then Beth's married Mason, who his wife ended her life with suicide. When he came home, he's a Army Ranger, helicopter pilot, Purple Heart, was shot down, served 20 years in the U.S. military, and he came home from one of his tours, and his wife shot herself in their house. And Beth and Mason knew each other previously, but have since married, and they've started Impact Junkie Military together. And there's a statistic, it's 22 suicides a day, 22 to 27 suicides a day in the U.S. alone that are active or retired U.S. military. So when you look at Beth and you look at Mason, and then their combined power together, that they have this unique story. Yeah, some very painful days, some very beautiful days, some amazing education and skills they've picked up along the way, but they're doing something with it, right? They have a story that no one else has, that exact story. But they have a lot of people who can benefit from their journey, right? Who they're helping. And it's just amazing to see that beautiful story unfold. There's a lot more we could say. We could go on and talk about these stories, but the most important thing is understanding you have a story that no one else has. You have a story that is uniquely yours, that is connected to the big, hairy, audacious problem that so many others are waiting for you to step up. And then fifth, I think we're on 5. Fifth is clarity over failure. The reason to have a big, hairy, audacious problem is when you're working on starting a company, maybe, and a lot of times we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, and we work with a lot of business leaders and organizational leaders and entrepreneurs with Impact Junkie, because that's a great way to bring sustainable solutions and also to find a very focused, specific solution to the needs that you're working on, the big problems. But when you're motivated by a big, hairy, audacious problem, it also helps alleviate your fear of failure, right? And we don't actually believe failure is a thing. It's all learning. And that's something we work through in the IJ course and the accelerators and the ongoing journeys everybody has, is understanding it's not just, oh, I failed, but it's what did I learn? And if we can approach problems in our community, problems around the world, problems that we feel like we're meant to solve, if we can approach them with that humble curiosity to learn, not just assuming we have all the answers or assuming we solved it or we figured it out, but have that humble and honest curiosity to learn. That removes any fear of failure, which is when we serve, this is all around the world. It's not just in the United States. It's not just in Central America. It's all around the world. Usually the number one or number 2, that's the top, when we do surveys and talk to entrepreneurs and leaders, the fear of failure is the biggest blocker for so many. And when you're focused on a BHAP, it's not about, oh, what if I start this business and it fails? Or what if I start this organization? Or what if I put this thing out there and no one likes it, right? It's bigger than that, right? Because even if that one business idea doesn't work out, you're going to try another one, because the overarching BHAP is what's driving you. Not having a restaurant or a shoe company or a services delivery company or a tech company. It's more than that. It's rooted in something deeper than just having a business. It's rooted in, what am I meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem am I meant to solve? And if it looks like this business, that's great. If not, I'm going to find another way and go another route. So clarity, it helps you stay focused, right? When you have this fear of failure, because you know you're driving towards something bigger than just, I want to have a business or I want to be an entrepreneur. That's fine. There's a lot of classes, there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of things you can do to learn how to be an entrepreneur. But what you want to be is dedicated. You want your life to be dedicated to solving something that is so big that's going to last beyond your life. That's a big, hairy, audacious problem. And then finally, the last reason why it's so important to have a BHAP guiding your life, and this is where all IJs start, the last reason is there are others waiting for you to step up. There are countless others that you don't even know yet, that you haven't even met. When we started this Impact Junkie journey, I didn't have all these pictures on the wall back here. And there's so many more. I didn't have all these amazing stories. I didn't know all these people yet, but I felt I was driven by a big, hairy, audacious problem. And I knew others were resonating with that big, hairy, audacious problem. And now we have, as much as possible, we try to focus on the pictures and the stories that keep us motivated and driven. And if I could go back in time and would be able to show my past self some of these pictures, I wouldn't have believed it. And if I told some of these stories and the places we've been and the opportunities that have opened to change more lives, I wouldn't have believed it. And now, being in my current self, I can't imagine this journey without all these beautiful faces, these beautiful stories, these beautiful places, and these journeys. So what also motivates you when you have a Be Happy is you got to know there are millions of other people out there saying, don't give up. Don't stop. We need you. This is exactly what we need. And you don't know who they are yet. You haven't met them yet, but they're cheering for you. And that keeps you motivated, because there are people out there who are facing this big, hairy, audacious problem and need your unique story, your unique passion, your unique background, your unique set of skills, and God-given abilities to turn that passion into action, right? They're cheering for you. So the question we ask constantly is, what are you going to do with what you've been given? We all have these amazing stories, and if you haven't gone through the IJ course yet, let's go through this together, right? And this is one of the first exercises you're going to do, and it's going to be talking about the chapters of your life, going through your own unique journey, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So what are you going to do with what you've been given? That's where we start. That's where we start. And the video we played at the beginning, what are you meant to solve? What are you meant to solve? That's the question. And now I'm going to talk about where to start. All right? So I'm going to play this clip again. I want you to listen and watch all these clips in this video that I'm going to play. Watch all of these are unique stories. These unique stories I was just talking about. All these are part of this BHAP that I'm talking about. And then listen to the words as well. And then what we're going to do is I want to dig into your big, hairy, audacious problem. All right? We're going to talk about where to start with your big, hairy, audacious problem. All right? Let's check this out. Let's go change some lives today. How we go forward.
This is your moment. This is where it happens. This is where your story changes. This is where you decide to take action. This is where you become the solution. This is where you see lives changed. This is where you are changed. This is where adventurous entrepreneurs go. Love people, go places, change lives. Let's get after it. The question you've got to ask yourself is, what am I meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem are you meant to solve? In your city, in your community, in your country, in your world, what are you meant to solve? And once you answer that question, nothing can stop you.
That's in Haiti.
It's time to stop floating down the river of life, just taking whatever comes your way. It's time to live out the dream that's been placed inside of you all along. Start that thing, make that change, take that action, just go. There's just too much at stake and too many lives waiting for you to stay comfortable.
That's it. Stop floating down the river of life, just taking whatever comes your way. Take that action, right? Be the solution. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Awesome. Let's see some snaps. Let's see some snaps. Let's see some X's. All right. All right. Love it. That's something we do a lot with IJ. We put up our X's. You know we do. And if you hear something you like, you got to give some snaps. Awesome. So let's go change some lives today. And we're going to talk, we're talking about your BHAP and why it's so important to have a big, hairy, audacious problem that you're meant to solve. And now we're going to talk about, well, how do you do something about it, right? So this is a framework that we all go through. This love people, go places, change lives. And this is something all IJs are going through, right? Every one of us. And you know where it's at. But here's the secret. It starts with you. It starts with you. Before we jump to solving the problems, or worse yet, being part of the problem, it needs to start with you. When those difficult days come, when those tough days come, when you want to quit, want to give up, it needs to be rooted in something deeper. It's got to start with you. So we spend a lot of time at the beginning of your journey. We're going to be spending a lot of time focusing on you and the specific problem that you're meant to solve. And this is us. Once you figure out what that is, it's this wild, crazy journey, hanging off cliffs and doing amazing things and going places you never thought you'd go before. Being in rooms you never thought you'd be in before, going places you never thought you'd be before. You look back at yourself and say, look how much I've grown, how much I've changed. I cannot believe it, right? It's a wild and crazy journey. And this is where we start. What are you meant to solve? That's the question we've got to answer before we go anywhere else, is what are you meant to solve? What are you meant to solve? Oh, I love these comments. I love them. I love those X's. Woohoo! We got some Honduras X's coming in. I love it. So what are you meant to solve? That's the very first question that we ask. And that's where we spend a lot of time digging in, right? And so often, especially around entrepreneurship, it's so easy to just want to jump into this business or this thing, but it's got to be rooted in something deeper. It needs to be rooted in your personal story, your passion, purpose, and calling. And when those difficult days come and it's going to be easy to quit, easy to give up, you say, nope, this is what I'm meant to solve. And I'm going to find another way. The business, the restaurant, the delivery company, the tech company, all right, the retail, all that that's not what I'm meant to do. That's a means that allows me to do what I'm meant to do, right? That allows me to work on what I'm meant to solve, right? What I'm meant to solve. And so that's why it's so important we spend a lot of time digging into that question. So here's what we say with IJ. There's a lot of problems in search of a solution. A lot of problems. And the world has really, really big problems. And you don't have to look very far, right? 800 million people don't have access to clean water, right? Billions don't have access to clean sanitation, right? Billions on our same planet. Millions of children live without shelter on this same planet we live on. And billions don't have access to basic financial services or bank accounts. Billions live without electricity on the same planet, right? They live without electricity on the same planet we live on. And in the United States alone, over 120 people die from suicide every day. 120 every day. And 22 to 27 of those every day are active or retired military veterans. And that doesn't count the families as well. So we could go on and talk about these big, hairy problems, and you don't have to look very far, whether in your own community, your backyard, or on the other side of the world. There are a lot of needs. But the question is, what are you going to do with what you've been given? How will you respond? We say there's three options, right? One is you can just spiral into deep depression, which is one way I guess that could happen. That's not the preferred method, but we've had to help a lot of people because there are really ugly things in this world and difficult things that people have to work through. So that is one option, but we prefer not to go that route. Second, you can just block it out, go on with your comfortable life and be upset. We say in the United States, we say be upset when pumpkin spice comes out in August instead of October, right? Or three, you can do something about it. You can step up, and in fact, you can be the solution. And in fact, we realize sometimes the problem is not necessarily the problem. The problem is us realizing we can step up to be the solution. Do more with what you've been given. Start something that changes lives. And so you say, okay, great. I'm frustrated by these big needs I see in the world, whether it's a healthcare, education, right? Poverty, human trafficking, suicide, all kinds of needs. We can go on and on and on and on. And I'm sure they're flashing through your head. And in your own story, you should already start thinking of, these are things that I feel like I'm called to solve, right? So where to begin? Where to begin? And so often what we will do is take a quick action because our heart is in the right place. And I've been through this journey, and I'm constantly, we all struggle with this. When you see a need, it's so easy to want to just fix it immediately, right? And especially if we're going after a big, hairy, audacious problem, we could actually be contributing to the problem or making it worse, right, by our actions. And instead of bringing sustainable solutions, we bring a temporary Band-Aid, put a Band-Aid on the need. And so before we jump into solving the problem, we have to better understand the problem. And so that's where, as Impact Junkies, we spend a lot of time, right, digging into these problems to understand the needs before we jump to solutions. And there's a great book, Toxic Charity, that we all start with, right? This is a key starting point for IJs. One of the foundational readings is Toxic Charity. And it's a great reading. Robert Lupton, as a pastor in Atlanta, he talks about in cities in like Atlanta and also on the other side of the world, he talks about how charities could actually be harming, and churches could be actually harming those that we say we love if we're not careful. And it talks a lot about empowering those we love rather than disempowering them. If we do for those in need what they have the capacity to do for themselves, we're actually disempowering them. And if we say we love people and we want to help them, we need to understand how to better help them, right? And this is where empathy comes in a lot. We're going to spend a lot of time digging into empathy, right? You may have heard this phrase, give a person a fish, you feed them for a day, show them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. We say, that's great. Okay, that's great. And we do a lot of education, but let's not stop there. That's a great next step, but let's not stop there. Let's not just give a fish, teach a fish, but let's empower and invest in them and help them buy the lake. Sell fishing licenses to the community. Start a fishing hatchery. Start a chain of fishing restaurants. Start a professional fisher network in their country and spread it around their region, right? Awesome. So a lot of times when we talk about business and ventures, it's on one side of the fence, and impact can be on the other side of the fence. Especially in the church space, in ministry, it's easy to we can compartmentalize our life. It's like, well, this is that side of my ministry, and then this over here is business. And one of the things we are working constantly to do is to break down that wall. Say it's not just, well, you stay over on that side of the fence and just make money. You're a money-making machine, and then you just throw money over the fence. And then we do the impact. That's led to a lot of failed policy in aid giving, and we'll dig into all this more. But it's led to a lot of failed aid. It's a lot of charities that have the right heart, but the poor execution that can actually contribute to the problems, right? And long term, there's a lot we'll dig in there. But the idea is to break down this wall, and let's do impact ventures. And as entrepreneurs and investors and business leaders, organizational leaders, it's even more important that we turn on our brain, right? We turn on our brain as entrepreneurs and investors, and we're actually attacking these problems, going after these problems. And as entrepreneurs, these are the more like higher level, it's like next level entrepreneurship, right? It's one thing to say, okay, I figured out how to make money. I can sell this widget and I make a profit. Cool. That's something, right? But what if you could do something whereby selling a product, you're also educating a community, or bringing clean water to a village, or connecting recovering and former military veterans with a new mission and a new purpose in life, right? And connecting them with entrepreneurs on the other side of the world. And by in turn, also helping them with the expertise that they have gained. On and on and on. So we call this like a triple black belt entrepreneur. It's how can you solve multiple market problems, right? By approaching these like entrepreneurs and problem solvers, we go in to better understand the needs and try to find ways to add more, right? To level up, right? And those are the most exciting problems as entrepreneurs and business leaders that you want to be working on. And that's what we say. There's these new terms, social entrepreneurship or impact investing. And we are fine to take that on. That's okay. But we think entrepreneurship in and of itself should just go back to why the origins of entrepreneurship and the free market and free people. The idea was around empathy. And we'll talk a lot about that and dig into what we mean by that. But empathy is about putting yourself in the place of those who are facing these needs, right? And it's the classic do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or love God and love people, right? Love people. If you truly love them, you want to help them, right? And not hurt them. So entrepreneurship as its core is understanding these needs and bringing solutions to these needs. So we spend a ton of time on your behalf and your specific behalf, right? And so I'm going to leave you with this visual. This is something I said we talk about your place on the planet, and this was the first one of the first. It was the first time for humans orbiting the moon in Apollo 8. The first time, a lot of firsts. This is an amazing mission in the 1960s. This was Apollo 8, the first time humans had left the orbit of Earth and just shot out into the black nothingness of space towards the moon. And they happened to they made it. They got caught. They got in the moon's light gravity and were orbiting around, and then they lost signal, right? They lost communication with Earth, no radio contact. And then they come up around the backside of the moon, and this was the first time humans had seen the Earth rise from the surface, the horizon of the moon. Their mission was to they were testing, of course, to get to moon and back to Earth, but they were also looking for landing sites. So they were really focused on the moon. But as they looked up, coming around the backside of the moon, the Earth just rose. And everything they've ever known, every person who's ever lived on that little blue marble floating out there, that planet. And he says, quick, grab the film. And he said, the black film or the color film? And he says, give me the color film. And he snaps this photo out the little window on the side of the capsule. And on their way back, you can watch the documentary. And on the way back, they're talking about, if I was coming to Earth, to this planet, would I think to land on the blue part or the brown part? And I don't see any borders. And on they start talking and trying to grapple with what their feelings that they're having as a human, and trying to put things into perspective, right? And speaking of perspective, this is the farthest photo we have. This is one of the Voyager missions. Took this. It was launched in the 70s. And did this amazing tour by all these planets. It was some of the first images we had of Saturn and Jupiter and these beautiful images. And it was traveling at 11 miles a second. 11 miles a second. And just broke out of our solar system in the last few years. And before it broke out, they turned the camera around and took one last snapshot of our planet. And this is called the pale blue dot. And everybody who's ever lived, every person, every experience that you've ever had is on that little pale blue dot, that little speck right there, if you can see it. That's Earth. And it puts a lot of things into perspective when you're talking about your big, hairy, audacious problem. And you think, is this something I really can do? Or you think, well, maybe somebody else ought to do it. Maybe it's too big for me. Maybe this is something someone else should do. Or I'm not qualified, or, I'm just going to go on with my normal life. I'm comfortable. And then I hope this inspires you, because it can be overwhelming to think, wow, there's 7 billion people on that little pale blue dot. And you think, how can I make a difference? Or you can look at that and be inspired and say, look how tiny that dot is in perspective. And I can actually make a dent in that little pale blue dot. And in fact, you see the 7 billion people just waiting for you to step up. 7 billion people just waiting for you to step up. So the question is, what are you going to do with what you've been given? We're starting this journey together, working on your story. It's starting with you. Before we go to understand what you're meant to solve, or what you're going to solve and how you're going to solve it, we need to understand you. Dig into your life story, dig into your chapters, start to pull out the themes, right? Start to understand the dots that connect. So often we're so busy and looking around at the world, and there's so much noise. If we could just take time to look down, to stop and reflect on what we've gone through, where we've been, you realize your heart has been guiding you all along. And it becomes so clear to you what you're meant to solve. And it can continue to change over time, but right now there is something that you're meant to solve, and there are people out there waiting for you to step up. And the question is, what are you going to do with what you've been given? So I'm so glad to be on this Impact Junkie journey with you all. Thank you all for hanging out, and we're going to take some questions. This is going to be a fun journey. I'm going to play a video one more time, and then we'll take some questions, all right? Peace. Talents and abilities. How we go forward.
This is your moment. This is where it happens. This is where your story changes. This is where you decide to take action. This is where you become the solution. This is where you see lives changed. This is where you are changed. This is where adventurous entrepreneurs go. Love people, go places, change lives. Let's get after it. The question you've got to ask yourself is, what am I meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem are you meant to solve? In your city, in your community, in your country, in your world, what are you meant to solve? And once you answer that question, nothing can stop you. It's time to stop floating down the river of life, just taking whatever comes your way. It's time to live out the dream that's been placed inside of you all along. Start that thing, make that change, take that action, just go. There's just too much at stake and too many lives waiting for you to stay comfortable.
All right, we got some awesome IJs here. Thank you everybody for joining the IJ show today. I hope this helps you and inspires you. We've got a lot going on. We have a lot of amazing things happening around the world. And yeah, even though it's been wild with the pandemic, it's been amazing how IJs have stepped up around the world. And we've got programs going on multiple continents right now. IJ's stepping up. We've got the IJ program translated into Arabic and Espanol, and there's more exciting programs you're going to be hearing about in the next couple of weeks. Things happening in Africa and beyond. So we're excited, and it's an honor to get to go on this journey with you. I will say, if you're watching, join. Go to impactjunkie.co, put in your name and email, and get started. It's that easy. It's super easy to get started. I guess I could have just said that, and the whole live could have just been, just Go put in your name and email and get started. That's it. It's that easy. And we're going to work through this journey with you. We had some folks, I saw some comments here. If you have questions, shoot them. Shoot the questions. Let's give us some questions. I see Elisa said my gift to myself for finishing my master's degree is jumping into the next IJ session. Lisa, that is a great gift. Absolutely. And there's actually some reading and materials that you can start with right away. Like start in the meantime. That'll get you going and get you started. So awesome. Alexis, hey, what's up? Linda, what's up? I see those X's. Love it. Love it. That's great. That's great. Yeah, a lot of people, yeah, I see. How do I get started? So I see a lot of people. So all you have to do is go to IMPACTJUNKIE.co. It's that easy. Get started. Join live. We get together online, in person. We travel around the world. You see all these amazing stories and images. Get started on your BHAP, your big, hairy, audacious problem. What you're meant to solve, what you're meant to do with the limited time that you've been given. And thank you all for helping. Impact Junkie is not just an organization that you join. Impact Junkie is you, right? It's the Impact Junkie members doing all these amazing stories and all these amazing journeys and all these amazing ventures. So thanks for helping us grow and learn together. We all have this humble curiosity to continue learning and growing, and that's what it's all about. So thanks everybody for joining today. We'll be around. We're here every week, and we're planning to do more live streaming, more live shows in an ongoing way. We've got some exciting announcements coming down the pike, so stay tuned for that. So glad to have you all join us today. I think we're going to just cut it off here. If you got more questions, send an email or post it on the chat. We'll get back to you. Post it on one of the social media channels and spread the word. The next best thing is to have a friend join you on the next cohort as we go around and start together. Start this journey together. And you can start it by yourself and make some new friends, which is also awesome. All right, we've got some exciting interviews coming up on the IJ show too. Some awesome entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things. These triple black belt entrepreneurs that we talk about. Triple black belt entrepreneurs, man, we got some amazing coming up. And if you missed some of the past IJ shows, you got to go back and watch some of those. They're amazing as well. Oh, great question. We had a great question here. Yarb says, what's a great way to present your BHAP to others? Well. So one of the biggest, that's a great question. Really great question. One of the things we're always working on is, so we have this framework, right, that y'all know as IJs. We go around the X. The X is such a big part of what we do. And it's a trick for us to remember how we go through this journey, right? So it starts with you, then love people, and then go places, and then change lives. And we have I'll give you a little sneak peek for all those of you who haven't been through it. But the idea is you're always pitching. You're always presenting your idea constantly. You're always improving and growing, because if you're not doing that, you're dying as an organization, as a movement, right? And you personally, if you're not growing and learning, you're just slowly dying. And so the idea, Yarbi, is you're constantly pitching, right? You're constantly presenting. So I think it can look, we say love, listen, learn is one of the, which I can't find the slide right now, but love, listen, learn is, we talk about it a lot. And when we're developing empathy, there's a lot of conversations. It can look like having coffee and tea. It can look like a boardroom where you're presenting in front. It can look like a conference where you get up and present. It can look like a video that you post on social media. It can look like a simple web page. There's a lot of it's all by putting out what this big, hairy, audacious problem, right, and what you're trying to work on, and see if other people want to get on board with it, right? And at that point, you're also starting to test out some solutions, because you better understand the problem, better understand the need, and then you begin to to also demonstrate, like show people and get real-time feedback. So the idea is you're constantly in this cycle of real feedback. So for instance, starting with, I mentioned the IJ military example earlier, or with Impact Junkie itself, it started by talking to other people and saying, hey, is this something you're also feeling? Is this a need? Because this is something that I've identified. It's a big problem I see in the world and I don't know of anything else that's out there that's doing this exactly. And you say, yeah, me either. And you start getting some of that informal feedback. And then you would like to scale that and get larger feedback, right, on a larger scale. And there's all sorts of free tools you can use to get started with that. But the idea is to get started, right? And you're constantly having conversations. And the trick with this IJ journey is it's never just done. It's never, okay, I finished, right? Well, maybe until you're dead, but hopefully it continues to live on beyond your life. But it's this idea that you're constantly iterating, you're constantly growing, you're constantly pitching and improving, right? So your BHAP, ideally, it may start with one piece, then you may add another piece onto it as well. So your BHAP can grow. And if your BHAP is not, if it's not a BHAP, if it seems like it's too easy, it's easy to solve it, or I figured it out, or I understand it all, you may have too small of a BHAP, right? It may be a little HAP, right? An LHAP, a little hairy, audacious problem. Maybe you need a bigger problem to go after, or you don't fully understand the problem that you're trying to go after. And that often is an easy one to get into as well. So the idea is that you're constantly getting feedback throughout this journey, and continuing to grow both your problem and understanding of the needs and the problems that surround that, constantly trying to reflect on that, while also constantly trying to improve and understand the solutions and the offerings that you're bringing as well. And then changing lives, also understanding what's the best way we can continue to scale this and add more partners and add more to scale this. So, good question. Good question. You've got options. You have options for sure. All right, gang, we're going to cut it off today, but it's so great to hang out, spend time with you all. Keep loving people, keep going places, keep changing lives. Share a question or a comment anytime. We're here for you, and we'll see you on one of the live meetups very soon. Awesome. Glad this is helpful. Awesome. Great, Lisa. Glad to hear that. Yeah, let's keep it going. Absolutely. It's an ongoing journey. We're all in this together. Yes. Cool. Well, great. Well, we have a lot more coming soon. We'll have more live sessions. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Keep going. Do more with what you've been given. Let's get after those BHAPs. Talents and abilities. How we go forward.
This is your moment. This is where it happens. This is where your story changes. This is where you decide to take action. This is where you become the solution. This is where you see lives changed. This is where you are changed. This is where adventurous entrepreneurs go. Love people, go places, change lives. Let's get after it. The question you've got to ask yourself is, what am I meant to solve? What big, hairy, audacious problem are you meant to solve? In your city, in your community, in your country, in your world, what are you meant to solve? And once you answer that question, nothing can stop you. It's time to stop floating down the river of life, just taking whatever comes your way. It's time to live out the dream that's been placed inside of you all along. Start that thing. Make that change. Take that action. Just go. There's just too much at stake and too many lives waiting for you to stay comfortable.